Full interview with A.S. King, author of Ask the Passengers. What's your name, your job, and your major?
My name is Amy King. My job is I'm an author and a public speaker, although I got one from doing the other. And my, what do you say, major? I actually have an art school degree. I have photography. I was an art school person, so I did photography back when it was in darkrooms. So I ended up in writing because basically my job became obsolete when darkrooms went out of style, when digital came in.
Let's start with an easier question. What's your favorite thing about your job?
Is it my brain makes my money. I love it. I love the act of writing books. I adore it. It's frustrating. It's fascinating. It's terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. I love the act of sitting in this chair or standing here at this desk and writing. Love it.
Have you always known that this was a career you wanted to do since you were young? If so, tell me why. If not, tell me what major or minor events influenced you to choose this path.
Right. Yeah, I think I knew I loved reading books early. And then when I was in eighth grade, I read a book that it inspired me to want to write books. So in eighth grade, I definitely said I wanted to be a writer. And then I said I wanted to be a writer specifically that would help adults understand teenagers better and teenagers understand adults better, which is exactly what I ended up doing in my specific work. Because my work is a little bit different to a lot of other work out there, right? So that influenced me for sure. And then the things in my life also go with that. So I'm really glad you asked because they go together, right? Like in 10th grade, so 2 years after making it like that, knowing that I had this dream, but also keeping it real quiet because everybody will tell you not to go into the arts, right? Everybody. And I hope not to be one of those people, but I am going to tell you some of the downsides too, right? Which I know you're going to ask about. But the things that happened to me in my life that I needed to work out, but nobody was really willing to talk to me, especially as a young person, right? I worked those out on paper. So the fact that I was working out my problems on paper in a journal starting in 10th grade meant that I was used to working out the puzzles of my life on paper. And so that really helped as well. Sounds weird, but it really, really helped. So journaling is a big one I would say to do, even if it's just a few sentences a day.
Do you consider your job repetitive? What usually happens in your typical workday?
Repetitive, kind of, but it depends. Like every day I try my 2,000 words, but some days are really great and some days aren't, right? Some days the words are wow, some days the words are like, oh no. So it all depends. And so I would consider it a repetitive job, but yet at the same time, I would definitely consider it a job where you have to understand that I spend most of my time in this room, Alan. Like I spend almost all of my time in this room. When I get my days off, I don't have days off. I spend them in this room. That's why I'm here today on a Sunday.
In what ways does your job benefit society? Would you say that you're helping others?
Yeah, yes, I do think I help others. And not just because, I mean, if you know me, you know I write tougher topics or heavier stories, but like, even it doesn't matter. Like if you're writing a story that even just takes someone away for a minute, right? Gives them a rest, I think stories are absolutely a worthwhile and important thing in society. I think they always have been, especially for young people too. Young people really need to have that.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about your career?
Oh, there's like a lot, I know. There are many. The first is that we make a lot of money. That is absolutely untrue. In fact, it's so difficult to make money in this business. Don't forget the publishers make 90% on every book, and the author gets 10%, which is then cut up into different. Other people get part of that 10%. So the biggest misconception is that we make a lot of money. In fact, the reason I'm a public speaker is to make money to afford to be a writer, okay? Not to say that you can't. You can live this way. I've worked for myself since I was 24. I'm 52 now, okay? So I've not had to work for anybody else. I can have my own hours and all that. But there's that the other side of it is that you have to hustle. You have to figure out how to make that next check. And you can never count on that next check. Like you have to, or that next deal. The check you can count on because it's already, it's in a contract. But the next deal, you can't count on it. You just don't know what's happening next. So you always have to have kind of plan B, plan C in your pocket to figure out how you maneuver. Like the pandemic was a real was a real struggle. It was interesting because if I make my money public speaking, right, suddenly I couldn't speak publicly. So I had to pull out plan B, and I had to go, oh, I'm going to sell another book to cover that. So yeah, but that's the biggest one. The rest is that it's easy. I mean, they say 99% of Americans think they have a book in them. And the fact is that it took me 15 years over 8 novels to learn how to write a book. And that's the first 4 were on a typewriter, So it's like, just because I can write you an email or text doesn't mean you can write a novel. It's a tough one. A lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, you have to have like some sort of pizzazz to write a book.
Yeah.
And it also takes a long time because novels are long.
Okay. Yeah, and it's you have to learn how to do it. Same as anything else. I always say it's just like sports or music, right? You have to just practice.
Describe the publishing process. What does it take to become a published author? What sort of people do you see becoming an author?
Okay, so the process is pretty much straightforward. You write a book, you write the best book you can, you revise it until it's just truly, really wonderful, and then you go and try and find an agent. And this is I call this this is traditional publishing. So this is, publishing through Scholastic or Penguin or Random House. I can't really speak to self-publishing. I will say that self-publishing works if you have a special niche, but that's super luck. It's already luck enough to be in traditional publishing. You have to be the lucky one that might be the one getting the marketing, right? And they never tell you. You find out as you go. There's a lot of moving parts. So for you specifically, I think the biggest thing is to focus on the work, the art, because you're making art, right? So make the best thing you can. You get an agent. The agent hopefully then sells it to a publisher. If you get rejected, that's fine because you're already writing the next book, because an author writes books all the time. That's what an author does. So you don't worry so much about promotion. You don't worry so much about social media. You don't worry so much about TikTok. I mean, some people can really make it because they have a TikTok, but they're also you want to worry about the art. You want to make sure the quality is good, because that's what's always going to keep you in the game, right? And expanding your craft. You can't just be, you hope to show growth in your career, right? So then the type of person I would say is the kind of person who can keep working, like, what would you call that? Obstinate, stubborn, somebody who will not quit. You cannot quit. I got 500 rejection letters over 15 years. You're looking at one of the most stubborn people you'll ever meet. But my biggest thing is that I wanted to write what I want to write. I'm not writing surrealist books. I write weird books. So it wasn't like I was writing romances that, were going to sell right away because they thought, because it fit in a niche. I wanted to write what I wanted to write. I'm an artist, right? I was a visual artist first. So it took me a little longer writing as a female surrealist, because there aren't many of those. So they didn't think women could be weird or funny, which is funny, right?
Yeah, well, sexism still exists, but...
Mm-hmm. Oh, very much. I'm sorry about that. That's just going to keep hitting you all throughout your life, but it's cool. We all got to be stubborn at this point.
Here's a fun question. What is one book that everyone should read at least once in their lifetime, and why? And how has this book changed who you are as a writer?
I think everybody should read. See, I have a favorite book, but I don't know if I think everybody should read it. I think everybody should read Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, because it is a very relevant book. I was just reading it aloud, actually, outside my indie bookstore the other day, because it was his 100th birthday, or would have been his 100th birthday. And it was also Armistice Day, but I think that's a really great anti-war, anti-violence book, and I think it's just... And it's wild. It's just a wild adventure. And if you're used to boring thrillers, it would absolutely open your mind to how much cool literature is out there. But, I mean, it's just mostly because I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't even pick that one. There's other books that I would say that people should read. I don't know. I picked that one because you're the first person I'm talking to on this Sunday, and there's so many books to pick. I'm sorry. There's just too many books to pick.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you ask someone to list, like a favorite book out of many options, they're probably going to blank.
Yeah, I have too many. I mean, I actually teach children's literature, so I have so many books in my head. I didn't pick a children's book, which is funny because there's loads of those too, I think. But yeah.
In your career journey, what are some lessons you learned? If you could do it all over again, is there anything you would change? If so, what?
Oh yeah, great. All right. I learned a lot of lessons. I think one of the interesting things that I've learned is not to say I didn't, it helped me, but I watched my friends, right? Because you do end up with lots of author friends and you watch their journeys and you get to see people who are huge. And so you might be saying, I've never been an envious type of person. I've more been like a, wow, you go get it. You're like, if somebody's just selling and they're really successful, it's amazing, right? I mean, the same. I mean, I win a lot of awards, so I might not get a lot of money, but I win awards because of the type of work I do. But I'm really excited when my friends really, really succeed. But what I didn't expect is to watch them then struggle after that. You can't succeed for 30 years or 40 years. There's very few people who can succeed at that long rate. There's going to be years where it's like, oh, I'm not selling as much, or oh boy, I feel like I'm irrelevant now, or I'm too old, or a million things. So you have to reinvent yourself. And I think that's the same with any career. I know this from my parents. My parents taught me this, and they were doing totally different things. My mom was a nurse. She was also an educator. She was, all these different things, but she changed and just kept morphing and kept kind of inventing new positions in a way for herself as she went through her life, So I think you have to stay on your toes and reinvent yourself. And with art, I think that's a definite one you do, because I can't just write the same thing all the time. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is being able to make sure you can stay in this room and you can sit here for hours and days at a time. But also, also, if I could change anything, one of the things about those first 15 years, I wouldn't have changed how weird I was writing, because that's what I was doing anyway, but I wasn't aware of the market, which is a weird thing to say, because I was so into the art, I left behind the business. And so I should have gone, and then mind you, I was in a different country. I didn't live in America. So it was sort of like I wouldn't have had access to the thing I needed anyway. But what I would recommend is that you know your market, that you go out there and you go, I want to write a book that fits into this. And especially if you want to make money. And that's the thing, right? I want to make art. It's different. I'm one of those weirdos who would prefer to make art, and if it doesn't sell very well, then that's not my job. I'm not the sales department, right? There are ways to steer that success, and so you can do that. I think that's the one thing I've grown to figure that out, and I'm in my mid-50s, or I'm in my early 50s, and now it's kind of interesting to only figure that out now, but it's also kind of exciting because I can change things, and I'm about to, so it's kind of cool.
In general, what are your biggest concerns about the job market in the future?
Well, I have a 15-year-old sophomore, so it's sort of definitely is something I think about. I don't mean like I have one, like the child is my son, like I didn't just pick one up. Let's see. Well, I'm concerned, actually, not so much at the market. I'm concerned at the fact that education in this country at the moment has become a corporation-run thing, and therefore they've been operating it under the rules and ideas of capitalism, which is a fine thing to make money and all that stuff, but it's not serving students. So you'll have thousands and thousands and thousands, let's say, of forensic science majors in a year. But how many forensic scientists are really going to, be jobs? There aren't that many jobs. And so while I appreciate that many shows, let's say, I don't even know if this is true, but I think it's the shows on the TV that make people, let's say, very interested in forensic science. It's funny because both my kids are very interested in forensic science, and we don't watch TV, so they've never seen any of those shows. But so I don't know if that's the only reason. But how realistic? I wish we were more realistic when we came to when they're coming into the university. I'm really trying to help, in a way, look at the market, right? The same as I was just saying about books, right? If we could say, well, okay, forensic science, great, I'm glad. Can we widen it and call it chemistry? And that way you might be able to get a job in these other 7 sectors or whatever. And I wish that we worked more with students and we made it more student-focused instead of money-focused, which is what all universities seem to be in this country, which is sad. So that's one of the things that scares me, is that realism, right? The fact that not only sitting down with young people and being realistic with them about these sort of goals. That said, becoming an artist isn't the most realistic thing unless you can sit down and, again, I would say always have a plan B, always have another job. Most of my friends, for me, I was self-sufficient. So most of my friends either have a full-time job when they start, or in my case, I was self-sufficient. So if I ate something, then I grew it, whether it was a chicken or a potato, right? So So that, but I think that's all that's my answer to that question.
Well, I guess it's better that I live in Canada rather than the States because like their education system's a little less capitalized.
Absolutely. We're European citizens, so I think my son's going to end up in Europe, and that's just because it's free, but it's also a really great education, and it's not completely, about the money. So you are very lucky to live in Canada. Canada's a great place.
What tips would you give to young people who have trouble finding a job or deciding what major they want to pursue?
Oh, that's my favorite. Don't pressure yourself. Don't pressure yourself. Look, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up in art school. I didn't want to be a photographer. It's the last thing I wanted to be. I'm too shy. As much as I'm very, I'm too shy to be like a photographer. So I ended up in the darkroom, which was fine. It was great, but it's not really what I wanted to do. What I really wanted to do were actually 3 other things, and one of them was writing. But I was told many times that with my grades coming out of high school, which were not good because I was bored. I was a bored kid in high school. So that I couldn't be a writer. That is not true. The bottom line is you can, and I know people say this all the time, so it sounds corny, but you can legitimately do anything you put your mind to. Truly, you really can. I graduated in the bottom quarter of my graduating class. I always say to young people, I don't recommend it. However, I am proof. I am living proof, because every class will have a bottom quarter. I'm living proof that you can do whatever the heck you want with your life. And you can make something out of your life, and you can actually pursue a giant dream. This is one of the hardest things to do, be a published author, you can pursue giant dreams, even if you didn't have the best grades in high school. But for people who can't find it, be patient with yourself. Go and work, and more importantly, volunteer in your community. Go work for volunteer organizations, even just a little bit, while you're also working somewhere else. You will never meet the people that you'll meet there, which always helps. That's one of the things I tell people to do as a writer. Because you'll meet new people, and that helps you as a writer and artist. But also, you can find new ideas for a career direction in volunteering. It's just I still volunteer. I'm 52, and I learn something new every year.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I guess, just one about being an author. I do want to say this, it's hard work. It looks easy, but it's hard. You always have to, know that nothing's guaranteed. I think that's the one thing. And this actually goes with any self-employment, to be honest with you. I watched my dad do it with consulting firms, and my mom do it with other stuff. But being self-employed, and somebody who comes from a family of entrepreneurs, I have to say, it's so satisfying. It's so wonderful, and making plans and starting things, and knowing other entrepreneurs, people who started breweries, or I know people who start restaurants, and that's a tough one, right? But it's still fulfilling. So don't be too afraid to start your own business. I mean, Canada's a little bit different because you guys don't have to worry about healthcare. Down here, it's kind of crazy with healthcare, but it's so fulfilling. But it's also super hard work. Don't fool yourself, and you are going to have something in your back pocket. So that's when I think about going to school for something. If you're going to go to college, get a degree that's wide or something that you can fall back on. That's all.